Feedback Friday is brought to you by ProWrestlingTees.com, your destination for all the hottest wrestling t-shirts at low prices with super fast shipping. ProWrestlingTees.com also houses the full line of PWR merchandise in the PWR shop, along with the all-new line of Macho Man and Andre the Giant t-shirts. Each week, one lucky viewer will win a free tee, so stay tuned to find out if you're this week's winner.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to PWR Feedback Friday. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero here on Friday, June 6, 2014.
That's why it says Fish Fry Friday on the monitors.
Again, Hooked on Phonics did not work for you because it clearly says Feedback Friday.
That's what I get from you, but for me, it's Fish Fry Friday.
If you really want my feedback, I can give it to you. You want to do this on air?
Sure.
I'd like you to pay attention during the tapings. I'd like you to show up on time. I'd like you to stay off your phone during the breaks. I'd like you to stop. See, I'm not going to say that on
We have a studio audience tonight.
In this show, folks, we talk about you and your comments and your feedback to us on our broadcast for last week. And coming up later in this very broadcast, David Hero, special guest joining us via phone, James E. Cornette.
So you pulled some strings to get your boy on, huh?
Well, after that disaster that was Kenny Starmaker Bolin a couple of weeks ago when he called in uninvited, we did invite Jim Cornette to get equal time, if you will, here on Feedback Friday today.
I cannot believe he still called you a rooster lollipop on the air.
You know, PWR, folks, is the most watched wrestling talk show on YouTube with well over 13 million viewers since our debut in 2006 on YouTube. And we welcome all of your comments on our videos. Let's get to some comments left on last week's episodes of PWR TV. YouTube user by the name of QDog, with a W, says the following regarding last week's greatest ever.
Wouldn't it be with a Q?
Q is with a Q, dog is with a W.
Oh, gotcha.
As far as pure baby faces go, you have to give it to Sting and Steamboat. On the flip side, because of the exposure and money that was put into Hogan, you can't really disagree with him being the greatest babyface. If WCW/NWA had the right motivation and finances behind Sting in the 80s, there's no doubt he would have been bigger than Hogan. Wow, Q-Dog, interesting.
Well, I mean, Steamboat was a great babyface, but we never saw Ricky the Dragon Steamboat go up against a Nikolai Volkov or a Killer Khan or a Iron Sheik or a Sheik Adnan. You know what I mean? It was always the real American, the all-American Hulkster brother. Steamboat couldn't fit that model.
What about Sting? A man called Sting.
Yeah.
This is Sting.
I mean, yeah, he had Nikita Koloff program with, but I mean, they didn't have the kind of heels, the character heels that the WWF had at the time.
But for a time, Sting was WCW's biggest face.
I think he will always be WCW's biggest baby.
Really?
Absolutely. Because look how they protected him the entire time.
Yeah.
He was always well protected. Ric Flair was always his biggest adversary. Sting was always their number one good guy. Even when Hulk Hogan was there in 94, 95, 96-ish. It was still Sting was the guy.
A YouTube user by the name of the Emo Emu says,
he's emotional.
And I quote, Hogan is the guy. Austin hit the same level, but for a shorter time, and he didn't end up as iconic. The Rock is third right behind them, and Cena shouldn't even be in the top 4. Cena is a heel right now. He is booed, and he is the obstacle, not the guy who overcomes them.
Cena is booed, but he's also cheered. I mean,
he's cheered more than boos. You hear the boos because you don't expect the boos, but he gets more cheers than boos. People boo Cena to be cool.
Yeah, they do, because it's the in thing to do. Much like saying yes for Daniel Bryan, because it's the in thing to do at the shows. But you know, people have said that Bruno Sammartino should have been the number one babyface.
Not wrong.
He could have been 2 or 3. I mean, if you really think about it, Bruno Sammartino had a great run in the Northeast, in the WWF. I mean, he was the Italian Superman.
But it's greatest ever across all spectrums and eras.
Yeah, I mean, Hulk Hogan, he's the face of everything that was good in wrestling for a while. He was the guy. He was the poster boy.
We have another comment on the topic of Sting from a YouTube user at TheSaveMe1. How do you not put Sting on the list? In the late 80s and early 90s, Sting, in my humble opinion, was the number 2 babyface, just below Hogan and just ahead of the Ultimate Warrior. Plus, let's face some facts. In the late 90s, if it had not been for Sting being the mega babyface he was, and the countdown to Sting versus Hogan at Starrcade 97,
which was a huge flop,
the NWO angle would have never gotten as big as it was.
NWO angle was huge without Sting there.
Sting had nothing to do with it. Well,
nothing.
Remember, though, Sting was going to be the other guy if Hogan had not, at the last minute, agreed to do it.
You know, I'm going to say something that's going to probably irritate a whole lot of people.
You probably already have. This week.
I don't know if Sting's in the top 10 overall of wrestlers.
When you think of great faces.
I'm not saying babyface. I'm just saying when I think of my top 10.
Sting's not in it.
I don't know if Sting is in it.
No. Here's what bothered me about Sting, and it wasn't his fault. He was billed as being from where? Venice Beach, California. He was bleach blonde. Granted, he had face paint, but where was the top face at the time in the other company from? Venice Beach, California. It seemed like, again, it was a bit of a mimic. Or a mock, not a mocking, but a replication of what was good over in WWE. Final comment here on Seth Rollins' turn this past Monday night on The Shield. YouTube user Ryan Dawn says, and I quote, "A lot of people on social media were upset after Seth Rollins turned on The Shield. Some said, Seth Rollins is dead to me. Some said he was the wrong guy to make the heel turn. The only thing that was dead to me during that segment was the Indianapolis crowd during one of the biggest moments in WWE's recent history. Fans need to be patient and see how this angle plays out."
You want to address Seth Rollins now, or you want to save it for prime time?
Oh, we're definitely saving that for prime time. That's a main event topic.
Well, then I have nothing to say right now. It was Indianapolis of all places. I mean, come on.
Thank you for your comments on YouTube, folks, this week. We are also encouraging you to interact with us on Twitter. Each week on Twitter, we give you the chance to tell us whether you loved or hated one of the week's biggest moments. This week, we draw a thin line between love and hate over the WWE Payback
Isn't that a
pay-per-view last Sunday.
It was a movie, wasn't it?
Yes. Is that the one Kerry Washington was in?
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't love Kerry Washington?
She's pregnant. This event, which came to us live from Chicago without CM Punk, saw John Cena defeat Bray Wyatt and The Shield defeat Evolution. 84% of you loved Payback, while 16% of you hated it. We were live, David Hero, at Payback in the Allstate Arena in Chicago. It was a better show than I anticipated it being, with some solid wrestling matches as well. John Cena's defeat of Bray Wyatt, though, caused a lot of their Super Cena burying, which he did so in a literal sense, Bray Wyatt at Payback. Never mind the fact that John Cena again delivered a tremendous wrestling match in Chicago.
Cena and Wyatt, they both did. I mean, John Cena, he doesn't get enough credit. He is a go-to guy. I mean, he has had some amazing matches. And Bray Wyatt is a very similar style to John Cena. Big bruiser.
Brody?
Sure, you could say that if you wanted to. But, you know, John Cena once again shows why he's the top guy in the company.
A few of you on Twitter went on to explain yourselves further, and specifically YouTube, Twitter user @JohnFord22002 from across the pond.
Of course he is.
Said, and I quote, "Despite not thinking it going into it, WWE Payback was an entertaining 3-hour pay-per-view. Cena versus Wyatt was incredible." We will again be polling you next week here on the show, so be sure to follow @PWR Show on Twitter so your voice can be heard.
You know,
and it's easier to hear them when you use the hashtag PWRTV or Feedback Friday.
You know, just sitting here, and we'll say this for another show, I just did my top 10 of all time. I don't have Sting on it.
Is Cody on it?
No.
Dolph Ziggler?
No, he doesn't listen.
Heath Slater?
Nope.
Bully Ray?
Or of my all time. I'm like going back to like 1980.
Roman Reigns?
No.
How do you not have any endorsed talents on your list? Doesn't matter because they're not on it. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, after this brief timeout with our guest, Mr. James E. Cornette. Should be interesting after the break. We'll see you in a moment, folks.
Be sure to visit our friends over at ProWrestlingTees.com for the latest and greatest wrestling t-shirts at awesome prices. Go now where you can see the all-new officially licensed Andre the Giant and Macho Man Randy Savage collections. You can also find the official PWR shop where you can get the all-new Nelson Family or the Super Friends shirt as well. ProWrestlingTees.com is your home on the web for the most unique and entertaining wrestling t-shirts designed and sold by pro wrestlers.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, here on PWR Feedback Friday. Damian Nelson sitting alongside Dave Hero, and well, I am so elated. Right now, our guest on the phone is one of the greatest wrestling managers ever.
You got
Mr.
Kenny Bolin back?
James? No, Kenny Bolin will never be on this show again, and don't interrupt me. Mr. James E. Cornette. Jim, how are you, sir?
Just somebody get it out. I got so much to say. Thank you guys for having me on the program and to respond to the charges, the accusations, the recriminations made by that flim-flam man, Star Maker Bolin, who operates his empire of chicanery and misdirection from his hovel that he charges his 80-year-old mother rent to live in, to sleep on the couch. I'm glad to be able to respond to charges and expose his character once and for all, since he maligned, slandered, and malfeased me last week, I believe it was last week, on your program.
Yeah, well, it was 2 weeks back, but before we get to that,
Well,
Jim...
then it's even worse. It's been 2 weeks since I've been given a chance to respond to this foolishness and tomfoolery.
Does he really charge his 80-year-old mother rent? I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, to sleep on the couch. He's going to charge her more if they would rotate the bed.
It's a rough economy. You got to make money somewhere.
Yeah, here's the thing. Bolin, everybody in Louisville knows him, but thankfully the people up in Milwaukee, they're just starting to get a little taste of him. But everybody in Louisville knows that Kenny Bolin is a con man. We've been friends, for 40 years. And he has never been involved in an honest day's work or a legal enterprise in his life. He is the definition of the word a fraud. And he makes these charges. He operates, as I said, this empire of chicanery by running that mouth of his. I'm not allowed to, because it'd be a personal attack if I mentioned my impression of the size of his head as it looked on the Skype transmission. So I won't go into that. Or if I was to mention the massive glasses that I won't go into that. But and just the overall size, he blocked out the sun. I don't want to get personal here, but I'm going to respond simply to the charges that he made against me when his jowls were flat. But nevertheless, first of all, he says I haven't been able to hold a job in professional wrestling.
Yep.
To hold a job, one must first gain a job. And Kenny Bolin has not had a job in 25 years. I would say he hadn't done an honest day's work in 25 years, but he's never done that. He previously, in his younger days, was employed and generally left in handcuffs.
Oh, wow.
And he has managed to flim-flam people in the past 25 years, literally a quarter of a century. Around town here in Louisville, to the point where now everybody pretty much, when they see him coming down the sidewalk, they jump over to the other side. Well, actually, they do that even before they realize it's him, because there's no more room. But I won't go there.
The truth on Kenny Bolin, I love it.
But so he accused me of not being able to hold a job, but the fact is he is not searched for, obtained, desired, or even given a faintest glimmer of a thought to being employed. And he said he was with OVW for 20 years. That's because the Davis Arena in Louisville is literally 2.5 miles from his home. And he would show up there, and Danny Davis didn't have the heart to kick him off the air. I kicked him off the air, and that's when he came back and was a thorn in my side for 7 years as the head of Bolin Services, BS.
Fitting.
And that's when he managed all those wrestlers he claimed. As a matter of fact, he managed to stick his hand in their pocket. As a matter of fact, that's how I met Kenny Bolin. We were at the Oldham County Fair, didn't know each other, but I reached in my pocket to get my wallet to pay for something and shook hands with Kenny Bolin.
You know, Jim, Kenny told me that you were his errand boy in OVW, and that the whole Dairy Queen incident was because you were going to get him his food and you screwed up the order.
No. And as usual, I wouldn't believe Bolin if his tongue was notarized, first of all. Here's the problem is that he misrepresents everything. I was the matchmaker at OVW, and I fired him from the announcing job, and he came back as head of Bolin Services and managed to steal money from all those wrestlers on their way up to the WWE. But he did pin John Cena.
He did.
On OVW television, 1, 2, 3. He's one of only 2 people, I believe, to beat John Cena in his OVW tenure, and Kenny Bolin was one of them. After Cena was unconscious, flat of his back, being attacked by members of Bolin Services, he left that part out.
He conveniently left that part out. And he's talking about, does he really have, he's talking about like he has a DVD that he sells for $12.95 along with his Beats by Bolin headphones.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Also, you know, he sets up shop at Golden Corral, and he manages to sell everybody in town his various goods. I call him Bootleg Bolin. He can get you a great in-theaters movie. It might have Russian subtitles on it when you watch it. And they came out with John Cena, My Life. He came out with Kenny Bolin and John Cena, Our Life. I mean, man never had an original thought in his life. And the Beats by Bolin thing, once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's B-E-E-T-S, Beats by Bolin. He claims that there's people trying to infringe on his copyright. He gets these things wholesale from China and passes the savings on to the consumers. He's saving them the time of getting them from China, and he's jacking them for about $40 a piece is what he's doing.
Now, but Jim, you know, to be fair, I mean, Kenny Bolin has defeated John Cena. He has helped get most of the current crop of divas on track. He was like a father figure, a tutor for them.
What?
He not only did he claim that all the divas wanted him in a sexual fashion, but it's his motto. It's the Star Maker's trademark that he has his finger in the youth of America.
Oh my!
And I don't think he meant what he meant when he said it, but he said it. And the point is,
And that is a visual that I would rather not ever have to think about again.
he is delusional.
I'm
He's
Chris
delusional,
Hansen.
and he's got delusions of grandeur. And he's an egotist. He's a maniac, run wild, an egomaniac. And everybody's tried to calm him down, but it's no use. He just keeps getting worse and worse. And then he throws slurs and accusations. I'm a reputable broadcaster. As a matter of fact, my show, The Jim Cornette Experience, on MLW.com, go to JimCornette.com for more information, is literally drawing listeners by the tens of thousands. And this guy's coming on here at TV in Milwaukee, one of the greatest wrestling markets in the country, and maligning my reputation when he's been nothing but a leech, a hanger-on, a bloodsucker, and a parasite for the 40 years that I've known him.
Gospel.
And the only thing that I have to say is that when he dies, there's going to be thousands of people at his funeral, because you know what they say. Give the people what they want, they'll come out.
Wow.
Goodness.
Well done. Well, Jim Cornette, you know, you mentioned the Jim Cornette Experience, and I think that's enough Bolin time. I think we've talked about him enough.
Yeah,
if
we
you will.
bowled 10 strikes in a row there.
Did you really appear on this podcast, by the way?
We didn't even begin to talk about the space shuttle just sending back the first known northern pictures of the side of Bolin's massive head. Well, we're not going to talk about that.
But the Jim Cornette Experience podcast, you say you can get it at JimCornette.com and at MLW. Jim, I got to tell you, it's become one of my favorite wrestling podcasts, dropping every week on Thursdays, I believe it is. And your guest this week, Kevin Sullivan, great conversation, great insight as well. And I just want to say thank you for providing us with the Jim Cornette Experience via podcast form for free. It's always a joy each week to hear you and your insight on the business, especially when you get the opportunity, if you can call it that, to talk about our friends down in Nashville at TNA Impact Wrestling.
Well, I appreciate it, and actually, I encourage even non-wrestling fans to listen to it, because the reason why it's the Jim Cornette Experience is because we talk about everything that goes on in my life, which is sometimes boring and sometimes exciting and in between, and we do politics, and we do food, and we do people that just piss us off. And we encourage everybody, and we tell wrestling stories too, and I've had guests like Lance Storm and Paul Orndorff and Jim Ross and Tom Pritchard, and the list goes on, and we continue to have fun every week, and it keeps me off the streets.
And I understand Vince Russo's your guest next week.
That probably will not happen in this year. Actually, I had a question on our VIP section where I answer viewer mail and do stupid pet tricks and things like that. They said, if you had a choice of nuclear war destroying the whole United States, or having to live the rest of your life as Vince Russo, seeing things through his eyes, interacting with people in the way he would, and speaking to Ed Ferrara on the phone every week, but it was irreversible and you could only pick once, which would you choose? And I thought I said, now, what was going to happen to the world? The whole country gone. I said, oh, okay, I thought you meant the world. Okay, the U.S. is fucked. You know, you're talking the world. I had a decision to make there, but fuck it, I'll move to England, and I'm sorry, I love the country, but not you. What would people? What kind of sacrifice would people expect of one man to make?
Speaking of England, I understand the DVD Corny in the UK is also going to be out soon.
That's right. Corny in the UK is the documentary of my 2-week trip in the United Kingdom back in February. We went to London, Leicester Square Theatre, Manchester, Birmingham, Cardiff, Wales, Glasgow, Scotland with the Jim Cornette Experience Live, and I made a lot of good friends in the UK, and we had fun, and they shot me, no pun intended, literally almost 24 hours a day, so they've been editing footage, but some of it has been teased out on Twitter at the Jim Cornette. You can follow me.
Are you following
I
Dave?
need to
Yeah,
get this stuff
absolutely.
up on my website, but Wrestle Talk TV are the fine folks that are producing it, and it's going to be available very soon. And I think it's going to be different than any other wrestling shoot video that's been done before. Let's put
Jim,
it that way.
I was talking to good old JR last week, and then he was telling me about a trip you made where you had to get in, where you had to get into Canada. It was a long flight. The flight was delayed. You woke up and you weren't where you thought you would be, and
I mistimed my Xanax. I'm still in a metal tube going 500 miles an hour, 5,000 feet in the air, or 35,000 feet in the air, and my butt cheeks started sucking up the seat cushion. And if you'd have shoved a lump of coal up there, you would have come out with a 10-carat diamond by the time I got down, because it was a little bumpy.
so
I hate to mistime my relaxation like that when I'm on an airplane. That's why I don't fly. The first 2 times I've flown in the past 10 years were to go to London and back. And they were great flights because I don't remember.
Awesome. Well, Jim, we know you're a busy man. Again, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad we were able to have you on to refute every one of those lies that Kenny Starmaker Bolin told on this program 2 weeks ago, because they were indeed lies. You are a trustworthy individual, one of the greatest wrestling personalities of all time, and that's what's great about the Jim Cornette Experience, is you learn that personality is really Jim Cornette the man, which is always tremendous. So thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to your next podcast next week.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I just wanted to come out and illustrate to everybody that Kenny Starmaker Bolin would rather climb a tree and tell a lie than stand on the ground and tell the truth. And that's just the way it is.
Can he make it up a tree?
Well, as a matter of fact, that would be, it would have to be a very large oak tree. And then he'd probably figure out some way to talk somebody into climbing it for him.
Yeah.
But if he continues to bother you guys, let me know, because I've got a couple of restraining orders down here, and I can put you in touch with my attorneys.
Tremendous. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Cornette joining us here on Feedback Friday. Let's go now to Linda Kay with this week's winner of a free wrestling t-shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com.
Congratulations to this week's winner of a free wrestling tee for ProWrestlingTees.com, YouTube subscriber Q-Dog. Thanks for your comments, and we look forward to giving away another tee next week. But before that, we have Primetime TV tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Central.